Whispers from Below, a horror podcast by Justin W. Geis. Scary stories, both real and fake. Hello, listeners. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 4 of Whispers from Below, a podcast by a madman for madmen. I'm your resident psychopath, Justin W. Geis, and today's topic of discussion is the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Now, before I get into the episode, we've got our usual stuff to go through. Really quickly, if you want more info about Patreon or ways to support the show, please stick around till the end of the episode, or honestly skip ahead to that if that's more what you're listening for. I always talk about it at the end, but if you're interested in something like that, please take a listen at the end of the episode. And secondly, this episode is pretty chill, I think. I've been doing some pretty chill ones lately. Nothing that's been too, severe or crazy. This one is more of historical stuff, like how it was built, that sort of thing. It's a haunted locations episode, which I know a lot of people either really like or really don't like. For some reason, these are, really polarizing episodes. I'm not, entirely sure why. But let me know what you see. It is one of the most haunted locations in the country. It's currently open as a tourist attraction, but supposedly it's one of the most top haunted places ever that you can ever go to in your entire life ever. It was open to patients in 1864. So this thing ran for 30 years. This whole building ran for 30 years, and it was open to patients before it was actually fully done being constructed. There were still some things that were being worked on, but there was enough of it done that they opened it up to patients. It was designed by Richard Snowden Andrews, and he was greatly inspired by Tudor and Gothic Revival architecture. So you can see it when you look up pictures of it. It's a beautiful building, if I'm being 100% honest. It's a gorgeous building. It's just what happened there wasn't super chill, and so that's probably why it looks the way it does and why it has that sort of bad taste in people's mouths, is probably just because of lobotomies and things, which we're gonna get into. But what the fuck are lobotomies, dude? Those are not... Anyway, we're going to get into that in a second, but I think that if the building had been less asylum-y, it would have been just a beautiful building to look at. I mean, it still kind of is. So it was designed to hold about 250 people, but at some point in the 1950s, it ended up holding about 2,400 patients. So you can imagine the kind of things that people had to live through. The hospital got shut down forcibly in 1994 due to changes in patient treatment. I'm not entirely sure what that means, and I couldn't get a straight answer on it, but I believe it means no more lobotomies. So they were oh no, we gotta get rid of it. Gosh dang it. But it became a national historic landmark in 1990. And construction, this is where timeline wise it's crazy. Construction on this building was actually put to a stop because of the Civil War. That's how old this building is. It was put to a halt. I said it was open to patients in 1864, and then I said that it was open for 30 years. 130 years. Make that 130 years. 1864. So literally, it got halted because of the Civil War. It had separate rooms in the back for Black people. They constructed separate rooms for Black people. What? That's crazy to me. The idea of that is crazy. Also, 90% of it was done with prisoner labor, which is super not a thing anymore. At least I don't think it is. Maybe it is. But it was built with a bunch of prisoners that they had already had. But it was open for 130 years, y'all. That's crazy. Can you think of anything else that's been open for that long? Like, I genuinely don't have anything on my brain. I don't know about you, but I personally hate having to go to the grocery store. It takes up so much of my day when I could be starting a new hobby with that time, like soap carving, or collecting the sick bags out of airplanes. With Instacart, it makes grocery shopping fast and easy, all while allowing me to stay in my underwear. Instacart allows you to order all of the things you usually get from your local stores, delivered to your door in as fast as 1 hour. Not only that, but it will also give you smart suggestions for new items based off of your preferences, as well as highlight deals to help you save some money. The shoppers handpick perfect produce and make sure that your eggs get to you safely. You can get free delivery on your first order over $35 by following the link in the show notes. This also lets Instacart know that we sent you, and it helps support Whispers from Below. So if you hate grocery shopping as much as I do, try Instacart today and enjoy getting your groceries the easy way. So one of the biggest features of this building is the huge clock tower. And it was constructed around the same time that they constructed the separate rooms for Black people in the asylum. And it was actually built to be a self-sufficient building. So it had a farm, it had waterworks, and it had a cemetery on the grounds so that nobody ever really had to like leave to go do anything. And about 666 acres were dedicated to the self-sufficient nature of the asylum. The name got changed to the Weston State Hospital in 1913. They were trying to rebrand themselves as sort of like a modern psychiatric hospital, and they didn't want it to be seen as like a lunatic asylum because that really just like leaves a foul taste. You know what I mean? If you've been admitted into a lunatic asylum, that would be like going to a hospital and being like, hey, I need to go to inpatient. And they're like, oh, you mean the loony bin? Feel free to take a step inside. Like, fuck you. Like, I would be so mad. There's no way. And having been in inpatient, like, if I was spoken to as though I was crazy, like, I wouldn't, it doesn't help the experience at all. And I think they were starting to catch on to that. But the hospital housed alcoholics, epileptics, drug addicts, and, quote, non-educable mental defectives, unquote. I don't know what that means. I'm pretty sure it just means like people with mental disabilities that couldn't be like untaught. So anybody that sort of was like schizophrenic or like psychotic or anything like that, and like it couldn't be untaught. I'm assuming that's what they mean by that. Because I'm not really sure what like non-educable mental defectives means. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I'm also probably saying half of that wrong, so apologies. I would like to do a shout out to Jim and Susan, my parents, for consistently letting me know when I say things wrong on this show. Because I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry if I say anything wrong, just like let me know. And I'll get a text from them when the episode airs that's like, yeah, you definitely said that wrong. And I like ramble sometimes on this show and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? And then I'll remember and I'll be like, oh, yep, there it is. Um, yep, thanks. Like last week, I think I said something about like Hecate or something, and I was told that it's Hecate. I'm pretty sure I'm also saying that wrong still, but my mother informed me that I was saying it wrong, and I was like, "Thanks, guys." So I appreciate it. If I'm ever saying anything wrong, please call me out on it. I would love to know the proper way to say it. So then, this is where things start to get a little bit sketch. The hospital had extremely poor sanitation, even when it was first constructed. Um, and there was one wing of the hospital that was very well built and very well done. And the only reason it was that way is because it actually got renovated because a patient burned down one of the wings. And so they had to rebuild it. And when they rebuilt it, they cleaned it out. They made it nice and beautiful. And anybody that stayed there was kind of like lucky. But there was a lot of people in a very finite amount of space. So there was a lack of space, there was a lack of furniture, It also wasn't fully heated, so it made the hospital this sort of dingy and dirty place. And there also wasn't a lot of lighting, which made it very dark as well. I don't know if you've ever been to therapy, but these are things that don't help your brain. So being being in a dark, dingy place when you're feeling in a dark, dingy place doesn't help you get out of said dark, dingy place. Like it just that's just like not how science works. So I think part of the issue with the hospital is that they took on more than they could handle. They bit off a little bit more than they could chew. Um, at this specific place, and that's why a lot of asylums are like super haunted. Also, people didn't really understand science too well at that point in time, and so they were doing crazy things to try to cure things like homosexuality and stuff, which like isn't a disease. That's just like factually true. Like it's like not a disease. Like no one can fight me on that, regardless of your beliefs. That's just like genuinely scientifically factual. Um, but one fun fact about this hospital is that it actually became home of the West Virginia lobotomy project in the early 1950s. So lobotomies were supposed to reduce the amount of people that were actually in the asylums because there was like a huge overcrowding that was happening. Like there were way too many patients and not enough space. Um, Patients that couldn't be controlled were actually put in cages, like human-sized cages within the asylum in order to be contained. And let's just get into like all of this real quick. Lobotomies are a joke. Like the idea that by like sticking an ice pick into your frontal lobe could cure anything. I just don't understand. At that point, just do like open brain surgery because that's basically what you're trying to do by going through their eyeball to their frontal lobe. Like, I just don't understand the idea of like making someone brain dead to fix them. It just doesn't make sense to me. And it's such a gruesome, like, brutal thing to do. And for people to just be like chill with that, like, I don't know, man. I'm not really chill with all that. I just don't think that that's the way to go. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm not a doctor from the 1950s and it shows, but I just feel like that's not a good way to do things or to go about things. I just feel like that's maybe a bad idea. And then they put people in cages. So, like, if you were unruly, you got put in a cage for being mentally ill. Like, you're already suffering. You don't need to be put in a cage. That's fucked up. I was reading that and I literally like gasped out loud. I was like researching this in a public place too, and I like gasped out loud. I was like, like there's no way. Anyway, then next like big event, Governor Arch, whatever, decided to build a new psychiatric asylum and turn the old one into a prison. He decided this in 1986. The new facility, the William R. Sharp Jr. Hospital, was built, and the Weston State Hospital closed in May of 1994 and was not turned into a prison. It was vacant for a while, but some police officers decided to play paintball in it. 3 of them got dismissed from the incident, but it was like state officers got like dismissed for playing paintball in the old asylum because like why would you do that? It's like a historic landmark and you like played paintball in it. I just like don't know about all that. Cool idea, but like dude, get a permit or something. Then the Weston Hospital Revitalization Committee was formed in 2000, and their job was basically to create a way in order to maintain the beauty of the hospital and sort of keep its historic relevance while updating it so that modern audiences and people would want to visit it. So they decided to create 3 small little museums that were in it. There was one for toys, one for military history, and one for mental health. They were opened in 2004 on the main floor in the main building, but then they got forced to close because none of them followed any fire code like fire safety codes, and so they had so many fire code violations that they all got shut down like really quickly. So then they kind of had to figure out another way to do things. And they ended up like basically selling it to the highest bidder. And the guy that bought it turned it into this sort of like tourist attraction museum ghost tour thing. And it's got this mini museum in it. The museum has a bunch of different rooms that show artifacts from um, patients that were in the hospital, like stuff that they wrote on, pictures they drew, stuff like that. It has one that's talking about like tools from the time period, like stuff that they used to do, like the hydro baths and lobotomy picks and stuff like that, and what they used to use. And then one that's just sort of more about like the history of the building itself and how it got built. Um, it's like apparently super duper haunted from like all of the patients that were there. There's all sorts of reports of ghosts there. One of the ghost visits that you can do, like tours, is you can stay there overnight, which I just think you stay there from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. and you just like try to find a ghost. And I feel like that's crazy because obviously closer to 3 in the morning, you're going to be sleep deprived, right? So you're gonna find a ghost. Even if your brain like creates it, you're gonna find some sort of paranormal experience because you're going in there expecting it to be a thing. But anyway, that's more just my take on like paranormal stuff in general. But there are lots of paranormal tours that you can take on it. There's one during the day, there's one at night, that's like a shorter one, and then there's the overnight stays. Um, People that work at the museum dress as though they're from like ye old times at a hospital, which is like super cute and fun. I love a good like themed dress work, especially for workers. Like I just think it's fun to have like a nice little theme for how they're dressed. It's personally something that I enjoy. Some of the apparitions that they have talked about, there's supposedly a little girl named Lily that was born in the asylum and also died there. There was a patient who was brutally murdered by his roommates, and there were a couple soldiers that died there that frequently appear when people visit. There have been apparitions. Things have moved on their own. Flashlights have turned on and off. Voices have been heard in the asylum. They've made contact with people through spirit boxes and stuff like that. Um, so it's like super duper haunted. Like if you go there, it's like you can feel the presence of people surrounding you, which just like gives me the chills. Um, I really want to go though. Okay, I won't. I kind of want to go. Curious, question mark, question mark. I would love to go and just take that little baby night tour. I don't know if I'd want to stay completely overnight. That seems like I would take something home with me. But just that little baby night tour, just to sort of experience something that's like otherworldly, I think would be super cool and interesting and fun. I'd love to go visit. Also, the architecture in the building is just stunning, and I would love to see it in person. It's absolutely beautiful. Um, there are a ton of different articles that you can go read on people's different experiences there. Like, I can talk about the history of the building all I want, and I can talk about this, that, and the other thing. But reading these articles, like, I spent like a good like hour or two reading articles on just like people's experiences in the asylum, and it was fascinating. Just like what people have experienced there is so crazy, and they all of them like sort of corroborate each other um unexpectedly. It'll be like a year from the previous post and it'll be a completely different article from a different person, but it's still them saying the same story. You know what I mean? It's stuff like that that you just like you can't quite cheat that kind of stuff. There's also a ton of different ghost hunting TV shows that feature it. And yet again, Fallout features this haunted place. I don't know what it is with Fallout featuring like haunted buildings, but Fallout 76 has a building in it that is based off of the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. It's called Fort Defiance, and for those of you who have played the game, it is the home of the Brotherhood of Steel, which is supposedly like a pretty big plot point um, that you have to go through. So that's kind of cool, I think. And that's really all I have today. I know it's a little bit of a shorter episode, but really I would recommend taking some time and reading articles from people that have gone to the asylum and have experienced stuff there because it's so fascinating. It's such a cool thing to read about. Like 10 out of 10 would recommend. If you guys liked this episode and you want to hear more, I upload episodes every Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern. It's some sort of like different topics. So like if this episode wasn't for you, like maybe next week's episode will be. So just like wait and take a listen next week and hopefully it's more your cup of tea. Not all my episodes are this chill. Sometimes they're a lot longer, sometimes they're a lot shorter. I'm pretty inconsistent about timing, so apologies. You get what you get each week. That's kind of how that goes. If you have any episode ideas, one of my favorite things to do is episodes from you guys. You can send me a DM on Instagram. It's Whispers from Below. Or you can shoot me a message on the contact page at whispersfrombelow.com. Either way, I will get the message and I will let you know how I feel about it. I love doing episodes that are your guys' ideas, so please let me know. I'd love to know more stuff that you guys want me to talk about. And the last thing is, if you guys really want to support the show, the best thing that you can do is either share it with somebody that you know, or you can go support it on Patreon, patreon.com/whispersfrombelow. There's all sorts of cool prizes, and not prizes, but like rewards and stuff for being a patron. You get like custom stickers, a t-shirt, there's water bottles, there's a Discord chat where you can talk with me and other people that are interested in the show. Just all sorts of cool stuff. So if you're interested at all in that, like please go take a look. Patreon.com/whispersfrombelow. My goal, I don't really have a time limit on it right now, but it's to get 25 patrons at some point. I would just like really love to have at least 25 people signed up. So yeah, that being said, remember, asylums are super duper haunted and should not be messed around with. Secondly, lobotomies are a joke. They're just like not chill. And please stay safe with vaccines coming out and stuff. Get it if you can, but stay safe first and foremost.